If you've been involved in preparedness for a while, and by a while I mean over 10 years or so, you know how different backup power options used to be. It used to be the realistic choices were generators, or you had deep cycle battery banks, or the typical flashlights and candles. Those were really popular in preparedness. Then LFP batteries came around, and even the lithium batteries, and these power stations, and that changed everything. And even though having a backup power plan has never been easier, there is still a lot of misunderstanding about how they work. Some of the most common mistakes people make can reduce the battery's lifespan, or it can just be a waste of money. And maybe the most important one, it leaves them with far less backup power than they actually expected. After doing years of testing and reviewing a lot of these different power stations, I've put together a list of the 10 biggest mistakes I see people making, and more importantly, how to avoid those mistakes. So let's get into that here. And the first one I have is always keeping your battery at 100%. And this is a catch-22 because in preparedness, you want to be ready at a moment's notice. So you need these to be at 100%. But storing batteries for long term can put unneeded stress on them. That's why a lot of these power station companies, EcoFlow recommends 70%. They recommend that you don't charge them past 80% because it extends the shelf life of these batteries. Now, this is very minimal. These batteries last for a very long time anyway. So this is not something that if you are charging it to 100%, you're going to decrease it by half. It's very minimal. If it's something that you're going to put in storage and you're not going to use a whole lot or for a long time, make sure it's not charged all the way. Make sure it's between 60 and 80%. That way you're not putting a lot of stress on these batteries. Something else you could do is charge it to 100% right before storm season, or if something is going on, you want to check on these and then let them, manually discharge them to about 80% or so. And like I said, this is totally up to you and how you plan on using these. If you've got a couple power stations, put one into daily use and put that other one in storage less than 100% and you'll be good to go. And speaking of storage, these shouldn't be stored in a hot garage or someplace that gets above 120 degrees or so. This is sort of counterintuitive to the way that batteries used to be. The lead acid batteries you didn't want to bring inside, where these ones, you probably want to keep them inside because it's temperature controlled. Extreme temperatures are the enemy of these batteries. And like I said, it's not going to degrade the lifespan of these a whole lot. But with the money that we spend on these, we want these to last as long as possible. And we want them to be reliable in an emergency situation. And even when you're using them out camping or family gatherings outside, you don't want these to sit directly in the sun either. This can not only damage the power station itself, but it's not good for the battery. The next one I've got here has to do with the warranty. And everyone talks about, hey, we've got a 5-year warranty, a 10-year warranty. And whenever people are grading power stations or reviewing power stations like me, they talk about what the warranty is. And one, the warranty is only as good as the company behind that warranty. They may have a phone number, but are they going to answer that phone? Are you going to get the response that you need to? But one thing that a lot of people do is they don't test this out. They don't use these during that warranty period. They'll get it, they'll use it for a couple of days, and they think, hey, this is okay. But you've got a window where you want to use this as much as possible. These will last a really, really long time. A lot of these state that you can drain them from 100% to zero over 4,000 times. And that's, 10 years or so. So use these while you have that warranty window. That way, if something does happen, you'll be covered, hopefully. Like I said, it depends on the company behind that warranty. The batteries themselves are probably not the issue with these power stations. And there are so many these days, some really low cost ones to some high quality ones. It's the components, it's the power station themselves that is going to be the issue. So if the solar charging is going to fail, if the inverter is going to fail, DC or AC, you want to know that before that warranty period is up. So I suggest just using the crap out of these. I always do when I get them. One, because I'm doing reviews, but two, I just want to know, are they going to break down or are they going to be something I can depend on in an emergency or a disaster? The fourth one I've got here is unrealistic runtime expectations. And this is probably the biggest ones because marketing can be pretty deceptive about what their power stations are capable of, or we just don't quite understand what the difference is between watt hours and the watts. They are two completely different things. The amount of watts that a power station can handle, say it's a 2,000 watt power station, that's just the appliances you can run with that. The watt hours are what really matters. That is telling you how much energy storage is in that power station right there. So just because you can plug something in that is less 2,000 or less watts doesn't mean you're going to be able to run that for a very long time. Something else that needs to be considered is the AC conversion losses and the refrigerator cycling and things like that we see it's got 2,000 watt hours and think that we can run these different appliances. Say something takes 500 watt hours, you can run that for 2 hours. But that's not necessarily the case because of all of these losses. It takes energy to run the inverters in these. It takes energy when they're powering up and powering down. So there's going to be a lot of losses. And this also goes into the testing aspect of things. So we need to make sure we're being realistic about what these power stations are going to be able to do in a emergency or disaster. So it's something that we've got a 2,000 watt hour power station or maybe a 1,000 watt hour. Maybe we bump that up a little bit just to get a little bit of extra energy and just to be a little bit more safe. Again, testing these is actually crucial in the very beginning. And that leads me to number 5, which is sort of the same, and that's ignoring vampire loads. I've got TVs that I have plugged into my power station, and when you shut those TVs off, they're not actually off. They go into standby mode. You've got routers, maybe you've got Starlink, all of these different things that will draw energy even if you think they are off. And also just having the power station on itself. I can't tell you how many times I forgot to turn one off. And depending on the brand, what power station you have and how it's set up, it could turn off after 15 minutes of idle, of no loads present, or it can stay on for 4 or 5 hours. And that is going to drain a lot of watt hours in that battery. Again, just like I said, a good reason to do that testing and understand what you're in for. And number 6 is not testing real appliances, just, plugging in your refrigerator and thinking, okay, it takes 100 watts. I'm good to go. I can run this off my 1,000 watt hour power station for 10 hours. There are startup surges. There are different things that affect how long this is going to run. And those vampire loads, just like I talked about, if you've got a refrigerator plugged into this power station for 24 hours and it's on, it's going to have that vampire load and the compressor is going to kick on and turn off. And it's not going to last as long as a lot of people think it will. You've got refrigerators, you've got freezers, well pumps, even sump pumps, coffee makers, all of these different appliances and things that you may want to power in an emergency. And most of the time, they are going to take a little bit more energy than you thought. So make sure that whatever you plan on using that power station for, you're actually testing it with some of these appliances and seeing how long that actually is going to last you. Something else that gets overlooked quite a bit is ignoring the solar input limits. If you've got a power station that accepts over 1,000 watts of solar power, that's absolutely fantastic. But a lot of these will limit it to 400 watts, and some of the smaller power stations even less. You've got to pay attention to the voltage limits, the amp limits, because it really matters depending on what sort of solar setup that you have, whether they are going to work with these different power stations. And the reason why the solar limits I think are so important is not necessarily how much solar capacity you have. It may be that you want to upgrade in the future and you need to be able to do that. Or sometimes some of these power stations, you can actually plug another LiFePO4 battery into this solar input. And if it's capped at a certain voltage or a certain wattage, it's only going to accept 400 or 500 watts. Whereas the higher these limits are, the more power you're going to be able to put in those and the faster they are going to recharge. So while you may have only 400 watts or so of solar input available to you, you still want to pay attention to this because there may be situations that you don't see right now that will come up in the future, then you want to be able to have as high of a solar input limit as you can. And like I just mentioned with recharge times on solar, this also matters as far as when you're plugging it into AC because of the generator like I talked about. If you can plug it into your wall, it's probably not a huge deal because the grid is up and everything's probably running normal as usual. It matters when it's day 2 of something and you've got to recharge this. And if you don't have the capability of solar, you're probably using a generator or something like that. And with the higher recharge wattage available, that means the less amount of fuel you're going to use with these generators. If you've got a power station that can charge at 2000 watts and you can charge that really fast, that means you're using less fuel on these generators, and you're using these generators for a smaller amount of time, which means less noise, you're not attracting neighbors and things like that. So the recharge wattage really matters in these power stations. And it's not something that if it's really low, you want to just forget about it. But the higher this is, the better it is for a number of different situations. And the next one here is when a lot of people buy these power stations because of the new technologies and everything, they act like it's a replacement for a generator. Like this is all they really need and they're good to go. They don't have to worry about buying a generator now, which some people just don't have the space or the ability to buy a generator, and that may be this is a good option, a second option rather than a generator. But they are totally different. A generator creates power. You're going to need fuel storage and extension cords and things like that, but it creates power, where a power station stores power. And once that power's gone out of that power station, you're done. With a generator, once that fuel's gone, you're done unless you have more fuel. And like I mentioned earlier, a generator can also be used to recharge these power stations. So generators still do have their place, although with power stations these days, they've made them a lot less necessary. Although they still are necessary, it's not something you're going to have to run all night long, or it's not something you're going to have to use a few hours every day during a disaster. There's something that you can use in conjunction with one of these or a few of these power stations. Now, I know I've got a lot of you out there that really know their stuff when it comes to these LFP batteries and these power stations. If you've got anything that you see people, not really looking into as much as they should, make sure and leave that in the comments section below as well. But like I said, I've reviewed quite a few of these different power stations, these different LFP batteries. You can buy the pre-made power stations, or you can put together a pseudo power station yourself. I've done a few of these over the years. There are pros and cons of both of these. Some people prefer the plug-and-play aspect of the power stations, and some people like the DIY methods where you can build these and start to understand how everything works. And if something does break down in these, if you build your own, you're not worried about the warranty. You're replacing those parts yourself. You don't have to send that back in. Whereas with a power station, if the inverter inside this breaks or the wiring or a fuse pops, the power station may become a brick at that point. I've got a video that goes through the pros and cons of each of these and even talks about, just the regular LFP batteries themselves. If you want to watch that video, you can watch that here. With that, I am done here, everyone. Make sure and hit the like and subscribe if you like this video, but take care and prepare. We will talk to you all later.